Okay, well, good morning, everybody. My name is Kelly Whittick. I'm the health plan manager at Wespath Benefits and Investments. So I oversee the HealthFlex program. Thank you all for joining us today. I also have Bob Gerlach with me. He's the health and welfare benefits manager and truly an expert when it comes to things related to HealthFlex. And so I asked him to join me today as well. We are really excited to do this webinar for North Alabama today. It's a little bit of a different way of doing benefits education than we've done in the past, and so we're really excited to see how it goes. We hope you all find it valuable and welcome your feedback, so please share your thoughts with the conference office about what went well and what you'd like to see done differently in the future, because we definitely like to see if this method works for you all. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the agenda of our topics for today. Bob is going to advance that slide for me. So we're going to start off with a little bit of a lingo review. We all know that health benefits has its own language, and so we're going to talk through that language a little bit as a refresher. Then we're going to go in deep with your actual plan choices, the choices that you can make when you're making your annual elections this year through HealthFlex Exchange. We're going to dig into health accounts, and then we're also going to review the ALEX Benefit Counselor tool and why it's so important to use ALEX for help when you're choosing your plan for 2019. So let's move on and do some lingo review. Here are some health plan lingo, and some of these may be familiar to some of you. Hopefully you all have at least heard these words, but maybe they're swirling around in your mind and you're like, oh, I'm not really sure. I get these mixed up easily. So that is the fun of doing this lingo review. So a deductible, that's our first one, and you will certainly hear me say deductible over the course of the next hour and a half or so. The deductible is, there's a deductible for each one of our plans, and each one of the plans that you have to choose from for the medical and pharmacy and behavioral health plans. That deductible is an amount that the individual is responsible for paying in full for many services before the plan kicks in to pay various things. And different plans, the deductibles apply to different services, but that deductible is that fixed amount that you as the individual have to pay before the plan coinsurance starts kicking in. And while I'm going through this, I'm just going to remind anybody who's newly joining us to go ahead and mute your line so we don't get the background noise if possible. So go ahead and mute your line if you don't have a question, please. All right, the coinsurance, that is certainly related to the deductible. So the coinsurance is the percentage or the share of the expense that the plan is responsible for, or if it's your coinsurance, it's the amount that you are responsible for. So this is often a percentage, and the different plans have different percentages of coinsurance that you and the plan pays for, and we will talk through those in more detail. A co-payment, on the other hand, that's a fixed dollar amount. So even if the doctor bill, whether the doctor bill is $50 or $500, a co-payment is always the same. And there are certain services for certain plans that have that flat dollar amount co-payment. Typically, the co-payment is separate from the deductible. So very often you would pay the co-payment whether you've met the deductible or not. There are some exceptions to that, and I will talk through those when we get to the plans. The out-of-pocket maximum, that is the maximum exposure that you as a participant could have for utilizing services. And for our medical plans, or the plans that you're choosing from, that out-of-pocket maximum includes all covered medical expenses, pharmacy expenses, and behavioral health expenses. They all add up together, and the numbers are shared and add up and accumulate together for a single out-of-pocket maximum. That out-of-pocket maximum doesn't include things that, like expenses that are not covered. So if you've got something that's not covered by the plan, it doesn't count toward that. But for all covered expenses, you have a limit on how much you'll have to pay out of pocket. And then there's the premium, and the premium is the monthly amount that it costs to enroll somebody in the plan. And when we talk about premium and premium credit down the road, I'll remind you that the premium is what you see online when you make an election, and it's what Wespath bills the conference. It's different than what the conference bills the churches as that blended rate, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. All right, so there is our first round of benefit lingo, and we're going to go back. I have one more slide Back up one more for me, Bob. And we have some health accounts benefit lingo, because my goodness, are there a ton of acronyms accounts in HealthFlex. And I'm sorry for all those acronyms as the health plan manager. I do think that the accounts themselves are fantastic and bring some great value to you, but it can be a bunch of alphabet soup to try to figure out what they all mean. We have a whole section on health accounts later that talks about the differences, but HSA is a health savings account. You'll see that in green throughout this presentation, but that's an IRS defined account that is really a very portable account. It's strictly guided by the IRS. And that's the type of account that comes with our HSA plans. So we'll talk more about those down the road. We have a health reimbursement account. So that health reimbursement account typically is paired with our C plans, or they are HRA plans, and you'll see them down the road as well. They show up in blue. And then we have a flexible spending account. We actually have two types of flexible spending accounts. There's the healthcare flexible spending account and the dependent care flexible spending account. And those are accounts that you can choose to contribute to. So lots of different accounts there that we want to talk about, and we will talk about down the road. The word debit card, I mean, we all may have debit cards for our own checking accounts and such in our wallets, but if you participate in any of these health accounts with HealthFlex, you may also have that orange and blue WageWorks debit card, and that is a smart debit card that actually links to all of your health accounts through HealthFlex. And it's smart because it knows which account to pull from if you have multiple. So we'll talk about that a little bit down the road as well. And WageWorks, I figured I would throw that in there as well. So WageWorks administers all of these accounts, the health accounts and that dependent care flexible spending account. So if you hear us talk about WageWorks, or down, if you see something that says WageWorks, WageWorks is that administrator. All right, I have one more slide that that kind of illustrates how the plans work. And this applies to all of the plans. So you start out in the deductible phase, and that's the phase where you're responsible for paying 100% of the discounted rate for services. So when you're in that deductible phase, you can use your health account money to help offset those costs, but those costs are your responsibility. Then you move into this purple phase here, and that's the co-insurance phase, and then you're responsible for paying part of it. And how much that part is really depends on which plan you choose. And we have a nice slide that kind of shows the different co-insurance amounts. But that co-insurance phase, after you've met the deductible, you pay your share, the plan pays its share. And then you hit this out-of-pocket maximum, and you see it says OOP, or out-of-pocket maximum. And after you hit that out-of-pocket maximum, HealthFlex pays 100% of your covered expenses for medical, pharmacy, and behavioral health. So once you've hit that point, no matter what you incur after that, HealthFlex pays 100%. Now, I'm going to have, I'm just going to remind everybody to go ahead and mute if you're not talking, if you don't have a question. So Bob, can you advance the thing, and there should be a little bubble that pops up about co-payments. So we talked about that a couple of slides ago in our lingo, and co-payments are funny, not like ha-ha funny, but they're funny because they can be due before or after the deductible has been met, but never after the out-of-pocket maximum has been reached, as long as it's a covered expense. So for plans like, we'll talk down the road, but for things like the B1000 plan and the HRA plans, there are some co-payments for certain services that are due after, whether you've met the deductible or not. So it's the same co-payment whether you've met the deductible or not. There are other services like in our HSA plans for pharmacy that co-payment might be due only after the deductible has been met. And like I said, we'll talk more about that down the road, but I just kind of want to plant some of those ideas in your head and give you a good illustration. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second, and Bob is going to transfer his screen over to me because I want to share with you this little tool that we have for quizzing folks. It's called Mentimeter. You may have seen it. If you've been to a Wespath presentation before, you may have seen it. Can everybody see my screen with this question? I think you can. So what I want you to do, if you have, if you can pull it up on a phone or if you want to pull it up on a computer, I want you to go to menti, menti.com, and then it should ask you for a code, and you're going to enter in this code 844489. And you should see my first question come up and give you 3 choices. So that's www.menti.com. I see somebody found it. And then it's gonna ask you for a code, and you're gonna type in 844489. And so here's my quiz. This is so back to our benefits lingo. This is the amount that the individual is responsible for paying in full before the plan pays any co-insurance. And your choices are, is that copayment, is that out-of-pocket maximum, or is that deductible? We have a strong front runner over here in deductible with 8 votes. So that's either the right answer or I really did a bad job on those earlier slides. I hope it's the right answer. I'm going to give folks a few more minutes. 1 vote for copayment. So again, this is the amount that the individual is responsible for paying 100% in full before the plan starts kicking in for any co-insurance.
So these slides be shared with us. I'm on the phone. Yeah, I can't see what. Okay, I can't visually participate. So.
Yeah, please sure can. So we're going to record this call, and it will be available as a video with the slides. And then we also can provide the conference with the slides themselves, like in a PDF format that people can just kind of reference after the fact. All right, so out of 20 or so folks, I've got 15 answers. I think I'm going to go ahead and show the correct answer, and it is deductible. So that's the amount that the individual is responsible for paying in full before the plan pays any co-insurance. All right, let's move on to the next one. So what happens once, oops, sorry for that typo there. Once you have met your out-of-pocket maximum or you've paid various expenses up to your out-of-pocket maximum, you no longer have to pay what? So just pick one. Is it co-insurance? You no longer have to pay co-insurance. You no longer have to pay co-payment. You no longer have to pay your portion of prescription drugs. Is it all of the above? And I guess it's not really above. Well, it is above for you on the screen. It's all to the left. So is it all 3, or is it none of them? You still have to pay all of them. So once you have met your out-of-pocket maximum, you no longer have to pay what? Is it just the co-insurance, just the co-payment, just your portion of prescription drugs, or is it all 3 of those, or none of the 3 of those? We had about 15 or so participate last time, so I'm going to give folks a couple more. All right, so we have some more diversity here. 4 votes for co-payments, 9 votes for all of the above, 2 votes for none of the above. And the correct answer is all of the above. So all of your co-insurance, all of your deductible, all of your co-payments, what you share for prescription drugs, that all adds up and accumulates together to equal your out-of-pocket maximum. And once you've paid that much, the out-of-pocket maximum, you actually are not responsible for your co-insurance, you are not responsible for your co-payments, and you are not responsible for your prescription drug costs after that point. Now that assumes that they're covered expenses. I said earlier, if it's not a covered expense, the plan doesn't pay it at 100% just because you've met your out-of-pocket maximum. So the good news is that most folks got this. It is all of the above. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next one. Okay. An individual might be responsible for paying their co-payments before the deductible has been met, after the deductible has been met, after the out-of-pocket maximum has been met, or is it 2 of the above? So is it just before the deductible has been met, just after the deductible has been met. So you only make copayments before the deductible, only make copayments after. Is it after the out-of-pocket maximum has been met, or is it 2 of the above? And I think we see that it's 2. I hope you all know which 2. All right, awesome. 100% on this one. So it's right. A copayment could be charged either before or after the deductible has been met, depending on which copayment it is. And we'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of those later on. Awesome. Good job, guys. I think I have one more. All right. Which of the following are health accounts offered by HealthFlex? Please select all that apply. So you can choose more than one on this one. Health reimbursement account called an HRA, a health safety account called an HSA, or a health savings account called an HSA, or a flexible spending account, a healthcare FSA. All right, we're not doing too bad here. I guess I didn't fool anybody. Okay, I fooled one person. Not bad though. So here we go with that alphabet soup. So we do have an HRA, an HSA, and an FSA, but the HSA is a health savings account in this case. It's not a health safety account, although it does provide a bit of a safety net, so that's not a crazy thought. But so those are 3 types of accounts that we will talk through in a little bit. So awesome. Thank you guys for playing my game here. I'm going to turn this back. I'm going to turn the screen back over to Bob to go back to the slides. I hope that kind of gave you a little bit of a sense of where you're at in terms of understanding that benefits terminology. Bob is going to give us back his, there we go. So I hope that gives you a sense of where you are. And if you did have some trouble with some of the things, no big deal. Like I said, these are crazy lingo words that we all have to use, but I do want to encourage you all to kind of maybe give yourself a refresher of some of those things if you had trouble with them, because I think that makes the rest of this stuff a little bit easier to understand. Okay, Bob is going to play a quick video now, and I'm going to be quiet, and it's going to talk a little bit through the plans, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more. So Bob, go ahead and let's start that up. Hey, Bob, we can't hear the sound. You might have to unmute.
You will have 6 HealthFlex medical plans to choose from. 3 of the options are referred to as HSA plans. They are paired with a health savings account. 2 plans are referred to as HRA plans. They are paired with health reimbursement accounts. There is also a traditional plan, the B1000, which in most cases does not include either type of account. Both types of accounts cover medical expenses with allocated money on which you don't pay taxes. There are differences in how each plan works. All HealthFlex plans cover eligible well-person services in full with no out-of-pocket cost to you, including annual checkups and age-appropriate immunizations and screenings. But there are important differences in how these plans cover other services, like doctor visits, hospital care, and prescriptions. With the HSA plans, you will have to pay the full discounted cost for all services, including pharmacy, until you have paid your deductible. If you have covered dependents in one of the HSA plans, the deductible will be the family deductible, even if only one person has expenses. And with the HRA plans, you pay the full discounted cost of medical services only until you have paid your deductible. Then the plan starts paying a percentage. For pharmacy and behavioral health expenses, the plan will pay for part, even if you haven't met the deductible. And with the traditional B1000, you will pay a fixed co-payment for some services like office visits, emergency care, and medications. But for other services, you will have to pay the full cost until you have paid the deductible. Each HealthFlex medical plan includes medical, prescriptions, and behavioral health coverage. Each plan offered is available to every participant, and overall, None are better or worse than the others. There are just options. You choose the plan that best suits your health and financial needs and how high you'd like your safety net to be. Some have lower premiums and higher out-of-pocket costs. Others have higher premiums and lower out-of-pocket costs. The choice is yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob. So that video, that video as well as some others are available on the Wespath website, and I will make sure that the conference has links to those videos if Jessica wants to post those videos on the clergy benefits site as well for North Alabama. But the videos kind of are a good refresher, but I'm going to talk a little bit more and maybe in a little bit more detail about some of the items that were addressed in the video. But definitely one thing I want to underscore here is that there isn't a better plan and a worse plan. Like, there's no good plan and bad plan. The plans are all like mathematically based on the value of the plan in a population. And so there are plans that pay more if you use services and they cost more. And there are plans that pay less if you use services and they cost less. So it really has to do with how much you think you'll use in service and what your preference is in terms of paying more upfront versus more if you actually use service. I'm going to start off by talking about that so much about these plans is the same. And Bob, could you advance the slide for me? It's really where they are differing is in terms of how close you like your safety net to be. So there's some financial risk in kind of trying to guess what kind of services you're going to need in a given year. Some things we know, right? Like if we see doctors regularly, my daughter sees a couple of specialists every year. I know exactly what that's going to cost us. What I don't know is if they're going to find something in any one year for her, for any of us, where it's going to be, oh my goodness, it's more than we usually have to face. And that's where the safety net comes in. All of these plans we talked about have an out-of-pocket maximum. So they all provide a safety net. You know, they all kind of protect us from huge medical bankruptcy debt. But some of the safety nets are a little bit lower than others. And so what we might have to pay if we need services might be higher for the plans that cost less each month. And remember, I'm going to say this a few times, the monthly premium has nothing to do with what the churches build. The churches build a blended rate by the conference that's completely separate from the monthly premium. All right, so let's go ahead and move on and talk about how the plans are similar. So the first thing that all HealthFlex plans include is that deductible that has to be met before the medical services are covered. And I know that most of you from that quiz understand how that works well. Another way that they're similar is they all have co-insurance amounts. So that applies to inpatient and outpatient services at least. In some plans, the co-insurance applies to other things. They all have 100% coverage for wellness services. So even if you choose a plan that costs less each month and pays less out of pocket if you need services, the wellness services are always covered at 100%. So there's never any reason to not go get your wellness exams. The out-of-pocket, every plan has an out-of-pocket maximum, although that out-of-pocket maximum might be different between different plans. And then finally, every single plan uses the same provider networks and drug formularies. So you're going to get the same discounts on services, same discounts on medications, the same doctors are in network. You don't have to worry if you choose one plan that, oh no, your doctor isn't going to be in network, so you have to choose the other plan. So that's not true. The network and the formularies are the same for all plans. All of the plans also include our comprehensive well-being programs. And I'm actually going to take a couple of minutes to walk through these because I think that they are just such a critical part of what makes HealthFlex valuable to the UMC. So we have these 5 dimensions of well-being: financial, physical, emotional, social, and spiritual. And our programs try to touch a little bit on each of those dimensions. So we acknowledge that we touch a little bit more on things like physical, financial, and emotional than we do on social and spiritual, but we continue to try to grow in those dimensions as well. I hope that everybody is familiar with the HealthFlex WebMD website. This can be reached from wespath.org, and there's a little icon at the bottom that says HealthFlex WebMD. this is your hub to all of our other vendors, all of our tools, our health quotient, which hopefully all of you just recently completed, our health coaching. So it's really kind of your one-stop shop for all things HealthFlex. We have Virgin Pulse. That is our primarily physical activity program, but they're doing a lot of really interesting things around other dimensions of health and self-reporting, things that we do to address those other dimensions. That's also where you receive all your incentive dollars from HealthFlex, is through Virgin Pulse. So if you are somebody who is not enrolled in that, I definitely encourage you to go ahead and do that, because it's where you get your money for doing the things that you probably should be doing anyway to take care of yourself. NutriSavings is a new program this year. It's a really cool website and app that helps you make better choices at the grocery store. I don't know about you all, but I'm somebody that if I buy something that is not good for me, I will eat it, and probably in larger portion sizes than I should. But if I can leave it at the grocery store and make a better choice in the grocery store, that's how I make better choices for myself. And so this app can help you do that right while you're doing your grocery shopping. We have health coaching through WebMD. We've just gotten rave reviews from the clergy and lay workers who have participated in health coaching. We have over 50% of the folks that are eligible are engaged in this program and really taking advantage of getting helpful tips on making healthier choices. And we have more. So if we go to the next slide, we see that we have the EY financial planning services. Of course, that's something that Wespath has been offering for a long time related to our financial well-being, but it's such an important dimension of health. And so if you haven't checked out EY, if you haven't gone and done your financial wellness assessment or spoken to somebody, I definitely encourage it, especially if you're thinking about an HSA plan. The EY financial planner can help you figure out where you can take advantage of your HSA versus your UMPIP versus other savings opportunities. We have an employee assistance program coupled with work-life services. So these programs really address kind of the stresses that we all face, whether it's, finding childcare or elder care, or, with legal needs, or whether it's a need for one-on-one counseling to kind of talk through something that's causing stress in our lives. So those are great services available. The counseling can be available in person or by phone. MD Live provides telemedicine services. So if you are, after hours or can't get to the doctor, have like an ear infection or a really bad cough or something like that, you can actually call MD Live and consult with them by phone or even secure video. And it's actually a very cost-effective treatment. They can prescribe medication if it's appropriate. So it can be a really nice cost-effective alternative to like an urgent care or a late night ER visit because you don't have any other options. And then we have Weight Watchers. So we have a partnership with Weight Watchers, and HealthFlex pays 50% of the cost of enrolling in Weight Watchers programs. So lots of really great well-being programs that I hope you're taking advantage of. I'm going to give, on the next slide, I'm going to give a plug for the FAST, and you'll see this when you send your AE materials, as well as after the first of the year. But we've actually changed for 2019 the Blueprint for Wellness and HQ windows both to run concurrently from January to July. We did this in part because, when we're all making those New Year's resolutions to do better, maybe that's a good time to get a blood test and take our health quotient and kind of get us on the right track for the start of the year. So you'll be able to earn your incentives for Blueprint for Wellness and health quotient if you take those to any time between January and July of next year. And then if we go to the next slide, it just kind of recaps all of the HealthFlex incentives for 2019. And I just want you all to know, this is $410 on the table for each participant and each covered spouse. So for a couple, it's $820 on the table, plus a lower deductible. So you can earn your wellness points or your Virgin Pulse rewards anytime in the calendar year in 2019. And if you haven't earned all of those yet for 2018, you still have time for 2018. And then Blueprint for Wellness and Health Quotient, again, those will be January through July. So there's just some great opportunities to help keep yourself healthy, as well as to earn money. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because these are all included with all the plans. So again, when we ask which plan is better and which plan is worse, all the things that are most important in a health plan are in all of these plans. And so there isn't a bad plan. It's just a preference. All right, so let's talk about a few other things in terms of how the plans are similar and different. With this chart, you can see that a bunch of these things apply the same to all plans, and we've talked a little bit about each of these already. So those wellness services, the fact that there's always a cap on out-of-pocket expenses at the out-of-pocket maximum, the fact that you pay deductible and coinsurance for inpatient and outpatient services like labs and x-rays, and the same networks and formularies. So those things are the same for all plans, no matter which of the 6 you pick. Now, there are also some ways that the plans are different, and I do want to spend some time talking about those. The B1000 plan has that fixed copayment that applies for doctor visits, like your primary care visit, like your specialist visits, also for urgent care and ER visits. It has a fixed copayment, and that's true whether you've met your deductible or not. So that's a little bit different because the HRA and the HSA plans, you have to meet the deductible first, and then you pay your coinsurance. And so I'll tell you that some people think, oh, well, if I just go to the doctor a lot, it might be cheaper for me to pay just a fixed copayment than pay the full cost up to the deductible. That might be true, but you want to make sure that you're also factoring in the premium of how much it costs to even be on that plan. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple slides. If we move on to the next slide and look at some other differences, pharmacy benefits, so prescription drugs, those behave differently in HSA plans than they do in the HRA and the B1000 plans. So in the HRA plans, and that's the blue column, and the B1000 plan, that's the orange column, you are just responsible for your copayment or your coinsurance, whether you've met your deductible or not. The HSA plans, on the other hand, you have to meet your deductible first before that copayment or coinsurance takes place. And that's an example of when the copayment or coinsurance, or the copayment is only true after you've met your deductible. Now, I'll tell you that is an IRS requirement. In order to be able to take advantage of health savings accounts, which have amazing tax advantages, that is a requirement that you have to have that deductible before the pharmacy benefits kick in. So that's a little bit different about HSA plans. And then all 3 of our plan types behave differently for mental health counseling. The B1000 has that fixed copayment, and it's $15 for outpatient counseling, and that's true whether you go in network or not. A couple years back, HealthFlex decided that we wanted to make it more accessible for folks to get counseling, even if you couldn't find an in-network provider. And so we have that fixed copayment, that same fixed copayment, whether you go in or out of network. The HRA plans, and this was new this year for 2019, if you're in an HRA plan, you can have your coinsurance, which is a different amount for each HRA plan, but you could pay your 20% or your 50% coinsurance, whether you've met your deductible or not. And that's a little bit different than it's been in the past. But we did that because we wanted to make sure that there was no barrier to folks accessing those HRA plans if they wanted to take advantage of an HRA plan. The HSA plans, again, it goes back to that IRS requirement. In order to be eligible for a health savings account, you have to meet the deductible first before the plan starts paying for mental health services. All right, so that kind of talks about a lot of the similarities and differences. We also have this other chart that basically says the same things, just in a different way. And some of you are thinking, why are they repeating this information over and over? And I'll tell you that when we put these 2 charts side by side and we asked a bunch of benefits staff at annual conferences, which made the most sense, half of them said the other way and half of them said this way. So what we took from that is that people learn in different ways, and different ways of presenting information is relevant to different people. And so we included both of them. So this kind of shows some ways that the plans are similar and different. You can see for the HSA plans in that green column, everything is deductible and coinsurance, or for some generic prescription drugs have deductible and then copayment. but everything is subject to the deductible first. Whereas the HRA plans, the deductible and coinsurance applies to office visits and urgent care and ER and anytime you're in the hospital or any outpatient medical services, but the deductible does not apply to behavioral health or prescription drugs. So you don't have to meet that deductible first for those type of services. And then that B1000 works even more differently than the others. So there's that fixed copayment for office visits and urgent care and ER, fixed copayment for behavioral health, fixed copayment or coinsurance for prescription drugs, no deductible there. But certain things like a hospitalization or other outpatient medical services, they do have to have the deductible met first before the coinsurance kicks in. And I do want to highlight, especially as we go into the more detailed comparisons between the plans, the B1000 is the most expensive plan. Now, in North Alabama, it's fairly generous what the conference and the church pay toward these plans. So you as a participant, you may not really feel the higher premium of the B1000, but when we talk about premium credit, we're going to talk about the fact that it is in your interest to look at a less expensive plan, because if you choose a less expensive plan, you don't lose the extra money that the conference is paying. You actually get to add it to your health account. So it's worth taking a look at some of these other plans and seeing if they might be a good fit for you. And I just want to make one more plug for looking at other plans. In North Alabama right now, you all have a pretty high rate of enrollment in that B1000 plan, much higher than we see in other conferences. A lot of our folks in other conferences across the UMC are really starting to take advantage of those HSA plans and those HRA plans. So I'm just going to invite you during this AE to take a look at those. All right, so let's dig in and talk about like the specific differences between some of these plans. And we have other more detailed side-by-side comparisons.
Could you take some time for questions?
We had said that we can take questions at any time. I think that the easiest way to do it is probably via the chat. But
I tried to do that, but the message, I sent a message twice and it never came up.
Oh, okay. Then since you're on, let's ask your question.
Okay, thank you. I have two, hopefully they're brief. One is that I thought an annual doctor's visit would be considered a preventative service. Is that right? Or?
It is. So if it's your annual wellness checkup, that is considered preventive and that is covered at 100%. But if you go to your primary doctor, no copayment, no coinsurance, no nothing, no deductible. If you go to the doctor for like an ear infection or a sinusitis or something like that, that's where that copayment comes in.
Okay, got you. And then my second question is, if I were to switch right now from a plan that has HRA to a plan that has HSA, do I lose all the funds from that HRA that are currently accumulated?
You do not. You keep those funds as long as you remain with the UMC, employed by the UMC in some capacity. And when we go into the health account section, I'm going to say a little bit more about that. And if I don't, please feel free to give me a nudge.
Okay, thank you so much.
Hey, Kelly.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for your question. Yeah.
I typed in a couple things in chat, so it may not be working correctly. Sarah said that she didn't see her chat.
I see some chat. I think that you probably, if anybody wants to use the chat, it's probably, and you're okay with everybody seeing it, it probably should be to everyone. You make your chat to everyone. Otherwise, if you do it to the organizer only, that's fine. Bob will see it, and then Bob, at some point, you can cut in and cut me off when you think you want to read some of those questions.
Will do, and just to confirm, I do not have anything that wasn't sent to the whole group. So they are not coming through if you're selecting organizer.
I've got my chat set to everyone, and I've sent about 3 things, and it's not popping up.
Oh, that's so strange. Well, I'm so sorry for that, and I'm glad you spoke up. So everybody should feel the same. If you are chatting and nobody's hearing, please definitely unmute yourself and ask your question, because this is your time. That's why you came to a live session instead of just listening to the recording, is because you might have actual questions and we want to make sure that we're answering them. Okay, let's talk about the differences between some of these plans now. So you can see we have these HSA plans are blocked in green, these HRA plans are blocked in blue, and then the B1000 is blocked in orange. The first line right under that category tells you the name of the plan, and that's the name of the plan that you would elect during annual election. The health account funding tells you whether, just by sheerly electing this plan, whether you get additional money that can help offset your out-of-pocket expenses. And the ones in the green boxes, that money comes in a health savings account, an HSA. The ones in the blue boxes, that comes in a health reimbursement account, an HRA. And so you can see that for 4 out of 5 of those HSA and HRA plans, there's money that comes it's included by just enrolling in the plan. And that money is available on January 1st for you. And so you can use that money to help offset the cost of the deductible or the coinsurance or your pharmacy benefits, whatever you want. And so it's really important when you're comparing these plans to kind of mentally subtract that amount from your deductible or from your out-of-pocket maximum, because that's basically free money that's coming just by virtue of enrolling in the plan, and it really increases the value of those plans. So you can't just look at the deductible and you can't just look at the out-of-pocket maximums. You have to consider that health account funding. The other nice thing about that health account funding is that you can use it in 2019 or you can save it. So HSA money, and we'll talk more about that in the health account section, you can save forever. And it's your money. And the HRA funding, you can say as long as you're enrolled in HealthFlex and or if you retire from the UMC. So really, this is money that you can either use or that you can save for the future. So it's important to factor it in. The deductible, we've talked about what that deductible means. And you can see that it varies. If we look at the HSA plans from left to right, that deductible increases from left to right, from $1,500 for an individual and $3,000 for family, and then from going over to $2,000 per person and then $3,000 per person. You can imagine that the plans to the left cost more each month than the plans to the right. So what that means is, and we'll talk a little bit more about how premium credit works, but that also means that the leftover money from your premium credit is also bigger as you go to the right. So you have more left over that then gets deposited also into a health savings account on your behalf. It works the same way for the HRA plans. So the HRA plans, you can see that the C2000 has a lower deductible than the C3000, but the C2000 also costs more to be on it. So the leftover premium credit for the C3000 would be higher. The B1000 doesn't come with any health account funding, but if you don't elect any dental or vision, I believe there's a little bit of leftover funding in the premium credit, and that would be deposited into a health reimbursement account. Another thing that's unique about the deductible is the HSA plans, the family deductible behaves differently than the HRA plans and the B1000. So for the HRA plans and the B1000, if you cover one person, the deductible is $2,000, $3,000, or $1,000, depending on which plan you choose, going left to right from the blue to the orange. If you cover multiple family members, everybody in the family together has to meet the $4,000, $6,000, or $2,000. But if only one person has expenses, they still only have to meet the $2,000, $3,000, or $1,000. And I hope you guys are following me on the columns. I'm going again from left to right, starting with the left blue column. Now I'm going to go over to the green column because the family deductible is different for the HSA plans. And this has to do with IRS minimum requirements. The IRS says that the family deductibles have to be at a certain level in order for you to be able to participate in the HSA. And the reason for that is if you cover family, more than one person in an HSA, you can contribute up to $7,000 in a year in a health savings account. That's a huge tax advantage. Because of that, they want to make sure that the deductible is high enough to warrant that tax advantage. So if you cover multiple family members, even if only one person has expenses, the family deductible always applies. So I'm going to give you the example of my family, and we are in the H3000, which is the far right green column. And so my daughter is the one in our family that has all the expenses. She has to hit $6,000 in expenses. If nobody else has expenses in a year, she has to hit $6,000 before the plan coinsurance kicks in. And so the family deductible always applies in an HSA plan, even if only one person has expenses. But remember, the HSA plans also cost less than the B1000 plan, and especially that H3000 plan. So there's more left over in the premium credit. And what I do is I take all that savings and I put it in the HSA, and I use that to pay that $6,000 deductible. So I mentioned that because in the pre-questions, some of the questions we had are, which are the good plans and which are the bad plans? And the answer is, again, there are no bad plans. They just behave differently. Okay, if we go down to the next box in the coinsurance, you can see that the coinsurance varies. The amount on the left part of the slash, that's the amount the plan pays. The amount on the right part of the slash, that's the amount that or I guess it's a line, not a slash. That's the amount that you pay. So once you've met that deductible in the H1500, in the C2000, in the B1000, your share is 20% after that. Those three are the most expensive plans to be on. In the H2000, your share is 30%. In the C3000, your share is 50%. And then the H3000, your share is 60%. You pay your share up until you hit that out-of-pocket maximum. And that out-of-pocket maximum is in that next row. It's yellow. And you can see that out-of-pocket maximum is, again, it's the lowest in the B1000, but you have to factor in mentally the health account funding, and then you see that it's either $6,000 or $6,500 per person for the HSA and the HRA plans. The out-of-pocket maximums are different than the deductible for the HSA plan. The out-of-pocket maximums for all plans, if only one person has expenses, they only have to meet the individual out-of-pocket maximum. So going back to the case of my daughter and the H3000, she has that $6,000 deductible that she meets by herself, and then we pay 60% for $500 more, and then she hits her out-of-pocket maximum. So she doesn't have to get all the way up to the $13,000. The individual out-of-pocket maximum always applies if only one person has expenses. I'm going to pause there for a second and see if anybody has any questions about that or anything on the chat. I see some chat now. So if you choose the H1500, yes, the 750 is available January 1st. We have noticed sometimes, because it is a true bank, that the HSA is a true bank account, that sometimes it takes a day or two for the funding to be available on the card, but it is available and present in the account on January 1st. And then Scott had a clarification of, again, in addition, and we talked a little about the excess premium credit, but in addition to the amount in the health account funding, the extra premium credit would fund those accounts. And so we have a few slides in the future that talk about premium credit in more detail, but that's absolutely important to factor in.
I have one more question. Under H3000, it seems like paying 60% of pharmacy could get pretty expensive, but have you found that? I mean, I guess your HSA can cover that too.
Yeah, you know, it can be, and it really depends on what medications you are on. For our family, and this is just a one person's case, we're on a lot of generic medications. So even the most expensive generic medication, the full cost, and remember, for the HSA plans, you're actually paying the full cost of the drug until you meet the deductible, and then you pay 60%. And for us, you know, the full cost of the most expensive generic drug we're on is $150 for 3 months. So, I mean, it's not cheap. It's certainly not $15. But since I'm saving all that extra money in the HSA, I use that HSA for the $150, and it's not a problem. It's just part of my overall budgeting. And then that $150 accumulates towards my deductible and accumulates towards my out-of-pocket maximum. And so you kind of get credit for everything.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, good question. I do want to highlight the pharmacy as this last row. In the HSA plans, you see it's bolded after deductible for each of them. So that's true for no matter what type of medication you need, you have to meet the deductible first, which means you pay the full cost of the drug. What that could mean for some families, if you have a super expensive medication, and there are super expensive medications out there, is you could literally hit the out-of-pocket maximum in January, based on this plan. And maybe that means that you have to kind of save a little bit to kind of prepare for that. And maybe you use your old HRA funds to help offset that. But you have to pay that full amount until you've met the deductible. And maybe you meet your out-of-pocket maximum in January, but then the rest of the year, all of your drugs are covered at 100%. And the rest of the year, all of your other services are covered at 100%. It's possible that you are going to meet that. If you're in that situation, if you have that type of medication, you may have been on track to hit the out-of-pocket maximum anyway. The difference is the timing in the year that you would need it. And that is just part of the factoring what's best for you and whether your family can afford to pay that up front in January. I am going to ask, if you're not asking a question, to go ahead and mute yourself, just because otherwise we get a little bit of feedback. For the HRA plans and the B1000 plan, you don't have to meet the deductible first. The generics are the fixed copayments, and then the preferred brand medications are 25% in the HRA plans, and 20%, you pay 20% or you pay 25%. So 20% in the B1000 plan. For those plans, there is a cap on how much you can ask to pay, and we have detailed benefit summaries that show you what the cap is. But if you are on a very high cost medication, that cap would prevent you from having to pay, 25% of $10,000 or something like that. You can see that the same generic co-payments and the same preferred brand co-insurance apply in the HSA plans, but you have to meet the deductible first. And the exception is the H3000 plan that always is, after you've met the deductible, still 60% you pay. So that's always that, it stays that way. And that is the lowest cost plan. I'm going to pause for a second. Another good clarification from Scott is, remember that if you do use your HRA and HSA or FSA to help pay your share, that doesn't change the fact that it still accumulates towards your out-of-pocket maximum. So again, using my family as an example, I make sure that I've saved enough in my HSA and FSA each year to cover my out-of-pocket maximum, which I expect that we'll meet. So I'm paying my entire out-of-pocket costs up to the maximum, all with pre-tax dollars. All right, we are going to move on. That is the end of the deep dive into the medical plans. I do want to talk a little bit about dental and vision, because in HealthFlex Exchange you have the choice between 3 dental and 3 vision plans as well. So if we move on to the dental plan choices, we see that that there's 3 to choose from. All of them have similar deductibles. What's different, and what I don't actually have on this slide in detail, and I apologize for that. Oh, well, we have it on, you can see it kind of on the last column under orthodontia, but that maximum applies to other services as well. So the PASA TPO 1000 pays up to $1,000 in benefits. The PASA TPO 2000 pays up to $2,000 in benefits. And the PPO pays up to $2,000 for in-network and up to $1,000 for out-of-network. So if you have an in-network dentist that's in the Cigna Advantage network, the PPO plan is really worth a good look because it has better, like more generous benefits for less money if you go to an in-network dentist. For all the plans, the preventive care is covered at 100%. For all plans, the basic fillings, root canals, getting your teeth pulled, things like that, it's 80% for the two passive PPOs. And what passive PPO means is that it allows you to go in-network or out-of-network, no big deal, same benefit. The PPO, you can see that if you go in-network, it's 90% we cover, and 70% if you go out-of-network. So again, if you have an in-network dentist, this is worth a look. More major restorative care like crowns or implants are covered at 50% in the two passive PPOs. If you go to an in-network dentist in the PPO, it's 60%. Orthodontia is also always covered at 50% up to that maximum. But again, this is different than the medical plan, because in the medical plans we said you only that there's a cap on your out-of-pocket expenses. For the way dental plans work is there's a cap on how much the plan pays. And so if you're somebody or you have somebody in your family who needs a ton of dental work, you may just want to see how you can space it out from year to year, because the maximum that the plan will pay is $2,000 in the PPO, $2,000 in the PPO. I don't have it on this slide, but I do want to mention that HealthFlex has like this little wellness bonus related to dental. If you get your preventive checkup in a given year, the second year we bump up your maximum by $150, and we'll do that 3 years in a row if you get your preventive checkups every year. So 3 years in a row we'll bump it up $150 a year. So in that fourth year, instead of $1,000, it would be $1,450, and instead of $2,000, it would be $2,450. And all you have to do is get your preventive screening. So if you're in our dental plans, if you choose a dental plan, get your preventive screening, because that way, if down the road you need something, you've boosted your maximum, and the preventive stuff is covered at 100% anyway. All right, and then the vision plans, the basic vision plan, which is the default, is for folks that are new and haven't elected something in the past. The basic vision is included. It's no additional cost, and all it does is it covers the exam at a $20 copay, and it doesn't have any additional money toward glasses or contacts. Then we have two buy-up vision plans. One is the full service, which again has a $20 copay for your exam and for your glasses lenses. And then there's an allowance of $160 for the full service that you can use towards glasses or contacts in a given year. The Premier is the most expensive vision plan, and that is a $200 allowance, and you can use it for glasses and contacts in the same year. So if everybody in your family, or if you're single coverage, if you have a lot of vision needs, the Premier is probably worth a look. Otherwise, the full service is probably a good option for a lot of families that have like glasses and contacts needs. All right, I'm going to pause. Any questions so far on the plan choices? Okay, we are going to move on to premium credit. And we've talked a little bit about this premium credit and in the past, and we're just going to illustrate it a little bit more. I do want to underscore again that when I talk about premium credit, this is separate from the amount that the churches build. The churches build a blended rate, and my understanding is it's $740 a month for individual coverage, plus an additional $740 a month for any dependents that are covered. And so that amount is fixed that the conference bills the churches for health insurance. The premium credit has to do with the true cost of having somebody in the plan and how much is allotted to you as a participant to choose those plans. And I know that the conference has this information available to you, but just briefly, verbally, and Jessica and Scott, I know you'll correct me if I misspeak, if I wrote this down wrong. But if you're covering just yourself, you have $732 a month credit toward the plan. You're covering 2 people, it's $1480 a month. I don't think that's my phone beeping, so if that's you and you don't mind muting, that would be great. So if you're covering 2 people, it's $1480 a month that you have in credit. And if you're covering more than 2 people, so 3 or more, it's $1876 per month. Now, right. All the plans cost, oh, is that right, Jessica?
Yes.
All right. I did write it down right then. So all the plans cost different amounts, and those amounts are available when you're making your elections. They're available in the Alex tool, and then they're also available from your conference. So you can get the amounts if you want to take a look at them in advance. But here's how the premium credit works. So you get that fixed amount from the conference to shop for your plan. And then when we go on to the next slide, we can see that, Bob, I'm going to have you switch to the next slide, sorry. You can see how it shows up. So you can use that premium credit to offset your medical premium, your dental, and your vision plan premiums. You cannot use it to fund FSA contributions, or if you actually elect a personal HSA contribution, it doesn't fund that. But the leftover, and we'll talk about that on the next screen, the leftover does fund HSAs. But go ahead and go back, sorry, Bob. So you can see that when you make the election, you see the total cost, the monthly cost of what you've elected, and then you should see that credit. And this $1549 obviously isn't one of the numbers for North Alabama, it's just an example. But if you would see your credit subtracted from the amount of the total cost of the plans you elected, and then whatever, if anything is left over for you to pay, it would show up as your cost. And if there's any remaining credit, which for almost every single one of you, there will be at least some remaining credit. That is the amount that is then deposited into a health savings account or a health reimbursement account, depending on which plan you select. So now if we go to the next slide, you can see how this could work with these 2 examples. So Pastor Judy is the one that most directly applies in North Alabama because, like I said, there's almost always some leftover premium credit for folks in North Alabama. So if the monthly credit amount is $700, and that's just a round number, and the sum of all the premiums that you elect, so in this example it says the medical premium, but let's say the sum of all your medical and dental and vision premiums is $600. You have $100 a month left over in credit that you haven't spent. You don't have to have anything withheld from your paycheck for medical expenses unless you elect the personal FSA or personal HSA contributions. And that leftover $100 is deposited each month to the HRA or HSA. If you elect those green HSA plans, it's deposited into an HSA. If you elect the blue HRA plans or the orange B1000, it's deposited into an HRA. So you don't lose that extra $100. You get to keep it and use it towards paying some of those out-of-pocket expenses. It's important to factor those in when you're deciding how you want to choose those plans. And this is where the additional value of choosing one of those less expensive plans like the H2000 or the C3000 or the H3000, where there's some additional value, because you could potentially save a lot of money on premium and have more left over to be put into the HSA or the HRA. Are there any questions about how premium credit works or where the leftover goes?
Yes, what is the FSA?
Oh, what's that?
Yeah, the FSA. I have an account that's an FSA with HealthFlex, I think, and I don't really know what that is, why I have money in there.
Yes, we do have FSA accounts. I'm just gonna pause. We're gonna go right into this health account section, and we are going to talk about FSAs. So if you still have that question at the end of the section, let me know. All right, I'm gonna have Bob play this brief health account video, and then we're gonna dig in.
Most plans available through HealthFlex Exchange include a health savings account or health reimbursement account. These accounts allow you to pay for out-of-pocket medical expenses with money that isn't taxed. Make sure you consider the value of these health accounts when making your medical plan choice. Let's look at HSAs and HRAs more closely. Both types of accounts allow pre-tax funding contributed by your plan sponsor. Both are intended for eligible healthcare expenses. Both allow balances to roll over and build year after year with no limit on the amount that accrues while you're in HealthFlex. And both accounts are compatible with an optional dependent care flexible spending account, which you can elect during annual election. 3 of the HealthFlex plan choices include an HSA, and 2 plans include an HRA. The HealthFlex HSA has some important differences from the HRA. For one thing, you have the option to add your own money to the HSA account, in addition to anything that may be deposited by the plan sponsor. But the total contribution from all sources is limited to an amount defined by the IRS. The money you deposit isn't subject to taxes. Furthermore, HealthFlex HSAs can earn interest depending on investment options. HRAs don't. If you leave HealthFlex or the UNC, you take your unspent HSA balance with you. It's yours no matter what. HRAs may not be yours forever. If you leave the UNC or waive HealthFlex coverage, you have 90 days to spend any remaining HRA balance. After 90 days, your unspent HRA funds are forfeited. But if you retire from the UNC or your plan sponsor, your HRA balance remains usable until the funds are exhausted. There is also an additional account option with all plans, a flexible spending account, where you can elect to contribute additional pre-tax dollars to pay for eligible medical expenses during the year. The Health Flexible Spending Account behaves differently with HSA plans than other plans. So ask your plan sponsor for more details if you are thinking about a flexible spending account with an HSA plan. If you have eligible dependents, you can have a dependent care flexible spending account to pay for child or elder care expenses with any HealthFlex plan you choose. It works the same with all plans. The HealthFlex Exchange brochure and handouts have more details about HSAs, HRAs, and FSAs.
All right, so hopefully that answered some of the questions about the different plans, and now I'm going to dig in a little bit deeper and hopefully answer the rest.
Hey, Kelly?
Yeah.
I wanted to make an important clarification on the premium credit. What I sent you was actually the 2018 monthly premium credit amount.
Darn it. Sorry about that.
It's a little bit more next year. It's $744 for individual coverage, $1,504 for individual plus one coverage, and $1,907 for individual plus family coverage.
Awesome, Jessica. Thank you for that clarification. And I know the conference has that information online for folks somewhere. And those are the numbers that will also show up in Alex if you use that tool, and it will also show up online. So we have the right numbers. Everybody can rest assured that any of those sources that you go have the right numbers for 2019. All right. So let's dig into health accounts. Health accounts are these tax-advantaged accounts. One of the advantages of health accounts is that it helps you kind of see where your healthcare dollars are going. When all we see is co-payments, or when the plan pays a good chunk of the charge, it's hard to pay close attention to how much that charge is, and it's easy to forget how much the plan and HealthFlex is the plan, but that's funded by the conference money and the church money. It's hard. It's easy to forget how much the conference and the church are therefore paying for health expenses. So health accounts allow you to kind of pay a little bit closer attention to what those costs are. We talked a little bit earlier about how 4 of these plans have employer contributions in a health account that are available right away on January 1st. And then if we go to the next slide, we can see that the different accounts have different rules in terms of who can contribute. The HSA has the amount that the employer contributes, and that could be either through the amount that's pre-funded, it can be through the excess premium credit, or you as an individual can contribute to those HSAs. For the HSAs, and I have another slide later that lists the maximum, all of those contributions together cannot be any higher than the IRS maximum. And in 2019, that's $3,500 for individual coverage and $7,000 for if you have P+1 or family coverage. If you're 55 or over, you can add $1,000 to those. So $4,500 and $8,000. The HRA only the employer can contribute to that. So that can either come in the amount that's pre-funded in the plan or in the excess premium credit that is left over from the premium credit that North Alabama provides. The FSA, and that was the question that we just had, is I think I have an FSA. That's an individually funded account. So that's personal contributions. If you know you're going to have expenses that exceed what you have in an HSA or an HRA, you can personally contribute to an FSA and use that to pay your health expenses pre-tax. There's another FSA called the Dependent Care FSA. That is not a health account. That is for dependent care like child care, or if you have an elder that you're responsible for, it can be elder adult care as well. Those plans, that Dependent Care FSA, you can elect with any of these plans. So the next slide kind of is my plug for why you should consider contributing to a health account. And if you're in an HRA plan or the B1000, then you contributing to a health account means the FSA. If you're in the HSA plan, you're contributing to the health account is primarily your HSA, but it could be your FSA in certain circumstances. So the reasons why my plug for considering contributing to a health account is, first of all, you can save money on expenses that you know you're going to have this year. And I gave my example. I know we're going to hit that out-of-pocket maximum, that $6,500 for my daughter. I would rather have every cent of that come from a health account, because then I know I'm not paying taxes on the money that I'm paying toward the provider. It also means, and this is a convenience factor, you can access funds that are kind of set aside for health expenses. So you don't have to worry about when you get that big bill, okay, should I put this on a credit card? Should I pull this out of savings? You know, I wasn't expecting this, or I was expecting it. Where do I use to pay for it? You have this designated pool of money that you can use to pay for health expenses. You can also save for future expenses, and that most directly applies to the HSA and the HRA. But whether it's future, like in a couple of years, I'm going to need a hip replacement and I'm going to have higher costs, or whether it's future, like I'm going to have more expenses, more healthcare expenses in retirement, because that's what happens to pretty much everybody. You can save for those future expenses. And then I have a slide later that details it, but the HSA also has a triple tax advantage, which makes it pretty much the most generous account, like from a tax standpoint, that you could contribute your money to. 95% of households in HealthFlex have at least $300 in expenses each year. If you are paying for your share of out-of-pocket costs without a health account, it means that you're leaving money on the table. You could be saving money on taxes, and you're not. All right, so moving on to the differences, or this kind of delves into the tax savings a little bit. But let's say that you have $2,500 in healthcare expenses. Let's say that exceed whatever you have that the conference puts in your HSA or HRA through the premium credit, and it exceeds whatever is included. So let's say you have an additional $2,500 that you don't have any funds from the conference that cover. If you don't contribute that $2,500 to a health account, you will pay tax on that $2,500, and you'll still pay that $2,500 to your provider. If you contribute that $2,500 to an HSA or an FSA, it's pre-tax, so you pay no tax on that $2,500. You still pay the $2,500 to the health provider. But if you pay 22% in taxes, you now take home $550 more in the year. And that 22% is based on the DAC. So if you make more than the DAC, it might be higher than this. But if you know there are expenses that you're going to have that are not going to be covered by the health account money that you already have, this is why you would want to consider contributing your own money to an HSA or an FSA for this year's savings. Additionally, if we go to the next slide, for the HSAs, they have this triple tax advantage. So if you contribute this year, you don't pay money on that contribution. If you earn interest or dividends based on how you choose to invest your HSA money, all that money accumulates tax-free. And if you use it for a qualified medical expense, you don't have to pay tax on it even when you spend it. Now, HSAs can also function as retirement accounts. So if you build up a big enough HSA and you just want to use it to buy a boat when you're retired, and the boat is always our silly example of what people buy when they're retired. But you could use your HSA money after retirement to buy a boat, and then you would just pay tax on it. You wouldn't pay any penalties on it. You could use it for general expenses in retirement, but you would pay tax on it. But if you save that HSA money for medical expenses in retirement, then you don't even pay tax on it when you take it out. So that's a pretty big advantage that makes it worth looking at those HSA plans and thinking about whether you could make those work for you. If we go to the next slide, it talks about some of the other differences between HSAs and HRAs. Both of them allow you to continue to roll over money from year to year. So that's why I said saving for the future. You can keep using that money from, for future years. The HSA, you keep it forever. It's a true bank account. The HRA, if you end up terminating or waiving HealthFlex coverage, you only have 90 days to spend it down. Unless you terminate or waive HealthFlex because you've retired from the UMC, then you get to keep it. So you can use an HRA to pay for retirement expenses or healthcare expenses in retirement. The HSA has possible interest or dividends. The HRA does not. The HSA has annual limits, and I talked about those earlier. The HRA doesn't have any limits, but you can't contribute to it, so it's whatever your employer contributes. That's basically the limit. The HRA you can only use on people who are covered in HealthFlex, dependents that are covered in HealthFlex, but your HSA you can use on any tax dependent. It's under 19, or if you have a full-time student, it's up to 24. So that's a little bit different. If you have a 26-year-old on your plan, you can't use your HSA for them. I do want to point out a couple of other things about the HSA. If you have a low balance, so like in the first couple of years as you're building up a balance, there is a $2 a month fee that's deducted from your balance. It's a pretty industry standard fee. It's fairly low in the industry, but I do want to make sure that you know that it's there so it's no surprise. Also, if you're electing an HSA for the first time, you have to make sure you accept the terms and conditions for us to open the account on your behalf, because it's a true bank account. And if for whatever reason BNY Mellon can't verify your identity through other means, and that's using kind of their industry verification techniques, they may reach out to you and ask you to confirm your identity, and that's because this is a true bank account. And then the one note on the HRA, if you carry a low balance on your HRA, HealthFlex will send you a letter and say that you need to spend it down within 90 days or forfeit it. And that's just a stewardship thing. If you carry a low balance for a long time, we end up paying more in administrative fees than you have in balance. But we'll notify you in advance and give you time to spend it down. Before we go into FSA, somebody asked a question about if you have HRAs already and you decide to enroll in an HSA account, what happens? I think I'm actually going to save that for this next slide. Sorry, Bob. I know you tried to advance already. Because this next slide, the HRA will behave like the FSA does with an HSA. And I know that's a lot of letters, so let me explain it. So the healthcare FSA that's the account that you can contribute to. If you enroll in an HSA plan, there are special rules for the FSA. Specifically, you can only use your FSA for dental or vision expenses until you've hit a certain level of health expenses. And I have a slide, 2 slides from now, that details that level, so I'll save the numbers for when we can see them. But HRAs behave the same way if you carry them over and enroll in an HSA plan. So they're limited to dental and vision only if you enroll in an HSA plan until you hit a certain amount of out-of-pocket And I get that that's confusing. The good news is that you're not losing that HRA money. You can keep using it for dental and vision expenses. And then if you have high enough expenses, you can tap into it for medical expenses. And you can always save it for retirement expenses, health expenses in retirement. So you do not lose your HRA money if you choose to enroll in an HSA with us. All right, let's talk about flexible spending accounts a little bit more, and then we'll kind of talk more about the whole FSA, HSA conundrum. So if you are not electing an HSA plan, your only option to contribute to health account is through an FSA. You can contribute between $300 and $26.50. You can use it for medical, pharmacy, behavioral health, dental, and vision expenses. Because you're not in an HSA plan, you can use it for any of those right away. But if you terminate HealthFlex or waive HealthFlex, you can only make claims as of your last day of coverage. And if you don't use the amount you elected at the end of the year, you can only roll $500 for the next year. So this is a use it or lose it plan. It's not something that you can keep rolling over forever. The dependent care account, it's not a health account, but it's a flexible spending account. It's similar. You cannot roll the money over. You have to use it in 2019. If you terminate HealthFlex, you can only make claims as of the last day you were in HealthFlex. The dependent care account funds monthly based on your monthly contribution, so it's not available in full. But if you do have child care expenses, it's a great way to pay for child care expenses, both pre-tax and kind of to have the money set aside for child care expenses. Okay, our next slide talks about kind of recap the differences between all the accounts. Just a reminder, your FSA, health FSA funds are available on January 1st. If you have an HSA or an HRA, the amount that's included in the plan is available on January 1st. Any of that extra premium credit or anything that you contribute to an HSA, that's funded monthly. So that's not available in full on day one. And it usually shows up on the 5th of the month. The HSA has the unlimited rollover, the unlimited portability. The HRA has unlimited rollover, but if you leave HealthFlex before retirement, you only have 90 days to spend it down. The FSA, you can only roll over $500 to the next year. So it's a use it or lose it plan. And the FSA is pre-tax. The HRA, you don't pay tax on those because it's employer contributions. And the HSA has that triple tax advantage. So I know it's alphabet soup. I know it's a lot of different acronyms. They all have incredible value depending on which plan you enroll in. But we have a whole document that kind of does a side-by-side in comparison of these, which is available on the HealthFlex WebMD site. I do have this slide that I want to say that if you have an HSA and you can contribute to an HSA, you probably don't want to contribute to an FSA unless you've already maximized your contributions to your HSA. And the reason for that is because the FSA is, you can only use it for dental and vision expenses until you've exceeded this $1,350 deductible for individual coverage or $2,700 toward your deductible for family coverage. Those are different numbers than any other deductible I've shown you. They're the lowest numbers that the IRS will let us use, and that's why we use those. So if you have an HSA, sorry, go back one time. If you have an HSA, I would say don't contribute to a health FSA unless you know you have dental and vision expenses, you want to use your FSA for dental and vision, and you want to save the HSA money for the future. Or if you think you're going to have so much in expenses that you're going to exceed what you have in your HSA in expenses, and then your FSA could kick in. Okay, we are running long, which is fine. We're going to keep recording. I'm actually going to skip the video here and just move right on and talk about Alex. The videos again are available on on the Wespath website, and we'll make sure that the conference has the links to the videos for you. But I just want to take a few minutes to talk about Alex Benefits Counselor. This, if you didn't use it last year, it is an awesome tool. It's a great way to help you choose between plans. so many of you in the pre-workshop, the pre-webinar questions were like, how do I choose the plan that's right for me? How do I choose the plan that's right for me? This is how you choose the plan that's right for you. I gave you the whole slew of side-by-sides, and you can do all the number crunching on your own, or you can let Alex do the crunching for you. So if you go to the next slide, Alex Benefits Counselor is available now. It's available through annual election. It's funny. It was crazy. Last year we got comments that said, I actually had fun choosing my benefits this year. I've never heard that in all of my time working in health benefits. Alex makes this humorous. It takes about 20 minutes if you want to complete it, the full thing. If you just want to do the medical plan selection, you can do it a lot quicker. It's simple language. It's humorous. It gives you your plan choice and health account recommendations. What I just want to say and underscore is you still have to make your elections in WebMD. So please go use Alex, but whatever you tell Alex you want to elect, you can print that out and use it to make your elections, but you still have to make the elections. If you make the election in Alex and then don't make it in WebMD, we won't know what you elected. Alex is anonymous. All right, so just to kind of go through what Alex does. So Alex crunches the numbers. If you say, I'm going to see the doctor this many times, I'm going to cover this many people, I think I have this many medications. They use averages, but it's amazingly accurate. They incorporate the premium, your premium credit, and whatever they think the estimated out of pocket you're going to incur based on the plans and based on what you're going to use. And then it puts them all side by side and tells you how that might shake out for you. You don't have to choose the low-cost plan that Alex says is the low-cost plan, but at least it helps you say, okay, maybe the plan I'm in today isn't the best plan for me. And it at least helps you think about it. Alex also explains tax savings for the health accounts and helps you determine how much you might want to contribute to an HSA or an FSA. I will tell you that Alex does not, I don't think Alex factors in your extra premium credit, or it may not factor in your extra premium credit in full when it tells you your out-of-pocket expenses. So you just want to kind of factor that in. But it's a great tool. It will give you a good sense of what you might want to contribute. All right, so for most of you, listening to this presentation and Alex is probably all you need to figure out what the right plan is for you. Some of you are going to want more details. And so if you are somebody who wants to pore over the details, we have them for you. If you go to the wespath.org site and click on HealthFlex WebMD, there's a section that says details and FAQs. And it has so much more detail about HRA plans, HSA plans, the health accounts. It has FAQs. You could really dig in deep. If you click on the link that goes to annual election, there's an even more detailed reference center that has like the benefit booklets and the summary plan description. I mean, these are all important documents, but 90% of you aren't going to look at that level of detail, and that's okay. But if you want the details, this is where it is. All right, so annual election for 2019 is at the end of this month. It's October 31st through November 15th. Please, please, please use Alex to help you choose a plan. And then during AE, you go in and you make your elections. You choose from your 6 medical, 3 dental, 3 vision plans. It applies your premium credit. If you want to make any personal contributions, you can make them there. And then if it's the first time you're electing an HSA plan, you have to accept the terms of conditions. I'm so sorry for this. I missed this slide. If you don't make elections, you'll just be enrolled in what you were enrolled in last year. So this second bullet is not right. Bob, you can just put a big X through it on the video if you want. Or he's going to go change it for me real quick. But if you don't make your elections, you're just going to get the same plans you have last year. You will not have any personal FSA contributions. You will not have any personal HSA contributions. So, I mean, nothing bad happens if you don't make an election, but it means you don't necessarily get to take advantage of these other plans and other accounts that you may not be taking advantage of today. Let's see if Bob, how fast he was at updating that slide. So remember, you're going to want to review your elections when you've made them online. You have to approve them and confirm them. It's like a two-step process to make sure that you really meant to do those elections. And then there is a slide, and Bob, you can actually go on to the slide with the telephone support. So we have an AE support line through Business Solver, and they're the ones, that's where we make the elections. And so anytime if you feel like these online tools are just not cutting it for you, you can go, oh, thanks, Bob. So he updated that slide. Sorry, we're like back and forth now. Let's go back to this one. So this is correct. If you do not make your elections during AE, you will be defaulted into your current plan. Sorry for missing that before. And now if we go 2 slides forward, if you need phone support during annual election, you can just call this number directly. It's the number that will be on your brochure from Wespath. Or if you call the main Wespath line, we will direct you to this for support. So if you can't remember this, you can just call Wespath and we'll direct you here. So if you need phone support, that phone support is available. All right, I'm 5 minutes long, but I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions anybody may have. I hope you found this valuable. I hope that you understand the differences in the plans that you have. I think that North Alabama offers like some really great plans and, you know, a very generous premium credit. So you really have a great opportunity here to pick the plans that are really the best fit for your family. So I hope that this kind of inspires you to kind of take that action. Are there any other questions that anybody has? All right. Well, I thank you so much for sticking with me for hour and 35. Oh, yes, another question?
We did have a couple questions come through on the chat. So one of the questions, when will the brochures be mailed? They should go out no later than next week. So you should have them at least a week before annual election starts. Another question was talking about transferring FSA to HSA. You cannot transfer funds between any of the health accounts. So if you have money in your FSA this year, you will need to spend that down. However, up to $500 can be carried over until next year. And then, does the conference make HSA contributions? They do indirectly, based upon excess premium credit. If you select an HSA plan, that money, any excess premium credit would be deposited into a health savings account. And then additionally, the H1500 and H2000 plans that Kelly talked about do have some built-in employer contribution funding that's available on January 1st. We have another question talking about what's the difference between Wespath, HealthFlex, and Blue Cross Blue Shield, because it seems that we're attached to all somehow, and that's a very good observation. We are. Wespath is our organization, Wespath Benefits and Investments, and HealthFlex is our overall health and well-being offering. Within that, Blue Cross Blue Shield is the medical carrier we use, and WageWorks is who we use for health accounts. So FSA accounts go back to 0 at the end of the year is a follow-up question. If you do not elect an FSA for next year during AE, you will not have one unless you had some money left over that carried over. You do need to make those elections every single year. So if you don't want an FSA next year, you're not automatically going to get one.
Awesome, great question.
And as Scott just put out on the chat, I probably should have mentioned this. Thank you, Scott. Wespath was previously known as the General Board of Pension and Health Benefits of the United Methodist Church. I think it's been a little over 2 years ago that we officially changed our name. Was it 16? Middle of 16?
I think that sounds right. All right. Well, I think we got all our chat questions. I looked through the questions that y'all sent to Jessica in advance, and I think we got those. Thank you all so much for your time today. I hope you find this valuable. It's a long video, so if you need to re-listen to parts of it, hopefully you'll kind of zoom forward to the parts that you want to re-listen to. And please, please, please share your feedback, good and bad, with the conference. We want to know if this is a valuable way to provide benefits education to all. So thank you. Go visit Alex, participate in AE, and thank you for being a HealthFlex participant.
Ellie.